Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin and Rugby Preview Show. Joining me to look ahead to this weekend's URC action is someone earning cap number 35. Welcome back to Mr. Tom Coleman.
Evening, Jeff. How are you keeping?
And not too bad, and hope you're well too. But just before we start, Tom, maybe you can summarize the raft of contract announcements we've heard from Leinster during the week. It's been a busy one.
It's been great. Yeah, it's been brilliant. Well, obviously, I suppose the two IRFU ones at the start of the week were good with Josh and James Ryan. Was brilliant. And then we had Liam Turner getting a Leinster contract. And of course, James Lowe, which was brilliant. Some people were a little surprised to see him not get a central contract, but look, either way, he'll be wearing blue, which is good.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been good news all around. I mean, all the provinces have had their own little announcements to make, and they've been using different ways of doing it on social media. But it's good. It's always good to hear, especially this time of year, to see who's going forward to next season. Right, so now it's time to start harping on this week's feature match, which, as you can see there, is the Emirates Lions versus Leinster. It's in round 17 of the United Rugby Championship, and it kicks off at Emirates Airlines Park at 3 p.m. Irish time on Saturday, April the 15th. The match is being broadcast on RTE2, Viaplay and Premier Sports, and URC.tv. Leinster named their starting lineup at lunchtime on Friday, so let's have a look, starting with the back line. At fullback, we've got Chris Cosgrove. The wingers are Dave Carney and Tommy O'Brien. The centers are Ben Brownlee and Liam Turner. And the halfbacks are Nick McCarthy and Sam Prendergast.
Yeah, no, it's a mixture of experience. Obviously, Dave Carney, he'll be the Mr. Experience on the team. He's a new centre partner, so to speak, in Brownlee and Turner. Brownlee's a big guy, and I think we're going to need some strong defence from the likes of Brownlee and Tommy O'Brien. It's fantastic to see Tommy O'Brien back. He adds a physicality as well as his speed and aggression. He's a very aggressive winger. So I think with the likes of Brownlee and Tommy O'Brien, we might have to defend for large chunks of this game. The Lions are a team that like to play with a lot of possession, as they did against Glasgow there in the knockout stages of the Challenge Cup. So Leinster were, one of the compliments Leinster get throughout the year is, how easily players slot into the system, the Leinster way. And definitely this will be one match that will sort of test that theory to the nth degree, because you have a lot of new combinations in that back line up against a team at home with altitude, and they're sure to have maybe 60% of the possession. So it'll be interesting to see how we'll be tested in those defensive sets.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always keen to see how the center pairing is going to get along. And it's we've got a situation now where Liam Turner is the senior partner in that pairing, and but he's had an amazing season. And like we said, he signed during the week as well. So, and Tommy O'Brien, good to see him back as well. He's I mean, if he'd been fit all this time, he'd be really pushing. He was really pushing for a place there. So he'll be looking to use this South African trip as a chance to get back there. And of course, like you say, Sam Prendergast at number 10, a great place to get your debut and show us the form that he did at the Six Nations. So that's a very intriguing backline indeed. Okay, so let's move on to the forwards now. And the front row is Michael Milne, Lee Barron, and Vaktang Abdelaziz. The second row, Brian Deeney and Jason Jenkins. And the back row is Rhys Ruddock, the skipper, Will Connors, and Max Deegan. Well,
the bulk of experience is in that sort of between 5 and 4 and 8, I should say. Jenkins, Ruddock, Connors, and Deegan. The performance of those guys is going to sort of direct what sort of chances we have of winning down in Johannesburg. It'll be a strong test for the front row. The Lions are a good scrummaging team, like all South African teams are. They really had Glasgow under the caution a couple of weeks ago when they played Munster. Even though they lost the game, they had the Munster scrum in trouble for large parts of the game. But modern rugby, as we've shown, the scrum isn't maybe the weapon it used to be, especially if you having the full sort of armaments to back that up by being able to score tries, which is a problem the Lions have had, turning possession into scores. But the front row will definitely have a test, and the guys coming on off the bench in the same position, they'll have a test all day. But so it'll be up to the likes of Jenkins and Rhys Ruddock, with Connors and Deegan, really to bring this team forward, to try and see if we can snatch a win and keep that winning rate down in the URC going.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen this team named the Rhys Ruddock All Stars. Someone on Twitter coined that, and I think it's really good, and it fits really well. But like you say, that from 5 to 8 there, that's where the grunt is really going to come from. I mean, we're expecting, we need all the forwards to show up against any South African side, but that's where the real experience and quality is, and they can definitely bring it for sure. Okay, we'll move on to the bench now, and the front row there, we've got Tyg McElroy, Ed Byrne, and Thomas Clarkson. Then the other forwards are Alex Soroka and James Culhan, and then the backs are Ben Murphy, Charlie Tector, and Rob Russell.
Yeah, again, a mixture of generally inexperience. Obviously, Ed Byrne is the standout player who's got over 90 caps, I think, for Leinster. So his experience coming on to replace Milne will be invaluable. I think the Lions have a pretty good scrum, as we spoke about. So we're going to need those loose heads one after another. It's great to see Alex Soroka back from injury. He was one of our star performers down in the 2 games in South Africa last year. He was a real nuisance against the opposition line out. So it'd be great to see him come back into a bit of form. And with James Culhan on the bench, and as we mentioned, Sam Prendergast, if we can get those 2 guys on the pitch, it might be a glimpse into a future Leinster team or a Heineken Cup team back in 2025 or 2026, because these are 2 guys that were outstanding at under 20 level and probably best in class, for want of a better word, in 22 and 23. So it'll be great, the possibility of seeing those 2 guys, Culhan and Prendergast, on the pitch at the one time. It's exciting to watch.
Yeah, when someone says something like that, my first thing I want to do is go on Google and set a reminder for 2026 to look back and listen to this pod, so I can bring it up again and have you playing it, because you've already tipped Benetton to win the Challenge Cup. So we'll see how you're doing with the predictions. Then we'll come back and see how the prediction got on. Okay.
The other downside is that, of course, obviously, young Prendergast, I think, was born in 2004, which is a new experience for the slightly older, middle-aged Leinster fans that we are. When we, so that's a bit of a rude awakening as well. But yeah,
let me tell you, man, my rude awakening went long ago. I went to school with Tommy O'Brien's dad. So as soon as I saw him breaking into the Leinster team, I said, "Okay, that's it. We're well gone. That ship has long sailed at that stage." Okay, we're going to move on to our opposition, which is, of course, the Emirates Lions. And as ever, my graphics department is going to put the names on the screen. I'm not going to try to read them all out, but if you're listening to the podcast, you can find all the names in the program notes. How do you think their lineup's looking, Tom?
Yeah, the Lions, to be fair to them, and it's good to, sometimes you have to hold their hand up and go, the team I would know least about, even though I've watched them a good bit in the URC, the Stormers, the Sharks, and the Bulls would have more the names that we would know. But one thing that's in they have in their benefit is they're quite a settled team. Coming into the Glasgow game in the Challenge Cup the weekend, they'd won the previous 4. Some decent wins away to the Bulls, and they won away in Benetton, which is, I know it was during the Six Nations, but it's still no mean feat to win in Benetton, as most teams have found out. And they pumped granted it was a fairly inexperienced Racing team that the French sent down in the Challenge Cup. But look, they're on a run of form. They're fairly consistent with their selection. So they will have that familiarity of playing with each other. Look, they want to finish. There is, I think, they have an outside chance of getting to the URC knockouts. It's still mathematically possible, so they have everything to play for. And I think it's been a difficult season for the Lions, just coming away from what they've on the pitch. You see some footage of them travelling back from Glasgow, and they're all wedged into economy class. Now, I'm not saying rugby players think they're prima donnas, but these guys are big guys, and it's not ideal for a professional rugby club to have that. Then they have the debacle of losing jerseys at Stamford today, and that playing or training jerseys.
Sure, a couple of them had to travel separately on separate planes, I think, going to playing in Europe last week. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, a few of the teams, I think the Sharks ended up going via Paris, and some of them by Frankfurt. But the Lions in this instance, their kit got lost. And I know that can happen to any team. They had to play Stade Francais in their training jersey. They had to ask Stade Francais to get their names printed up and numbers printed up on the jerseys. Rumored they were just having hot dogs before the game. That's, nutrition is professional sport. You know what I mean? Look, you know, in some ways it's not funny. It's important to the URC that the likes of the Lions are looked after. I know there's a delay on the money coming through from the Europe and the URC, but we don't want the Lions to go the ways of the Cheetah, the Kings, and have all of a sudden have URC 15. And so it's very important that the rest of the teams, you know, and even if it's just a small voice like ours on the Leinster pod, telling the URC and the SARU to, you know, really pull a finger out and get this resolved, because having teams eating hot dogs before a game or traveling back and coach when you're, you know, you're 20 stone and you're 6'8" is sort of ridiculous, you know. So they've had problems. They've even, you know, that's stuff that's out of the control in some ways. They've had internal problems where, you know, there's Spygate amongst their coaches is you know, so that all is not happy in the camp. They had a grading, and the players graded their own coaches, and the head coach didn't get a great score. And there's rumors of some of the other coaches like Jack Ferree leaving at the end of the season to go to the Bulls. Just a hat tip to South African follower online, Scrumming Fly Half, who gives me the inside scoops on all things South African. So a little shout out for him. But yeah, it's not ideal. You know, these stories aren't good for the Lions, and they're not good for the URC. So I think they all need to be sorted. We want for, you know, as much as the issues going on in Wales, which is well voiced, and you see the exodus continued from there. It's the same for South African teams. We need to get them sorted, that they're not, you know, at the begging bowl, because it just makes a farce of what we want the league to be stronger going forward.
Totally agree. I mean, this is the second year of this new system, so they really, I mean, logistics was always going to be difficult with this URC project, but by now they should really be going into the third season next year. They really need to have all that ironed out, and hopefully they do. In terms of playing personnel, I'm totally with you. Of the four teams, I know a lot more about the other three. I do remember they did that. You know, it sounds bad, but they did a good job against us when they came to the RDS last season. I mean, we didn't get. I know this sounds really arrogant, but we didn't get the bonus point against them. But they did kind of push us, and that PNR is quick if you give them half a chance. And I have to admit, I had to look up, was that the old Alberts, or was that maybe his son playing? But it is actually him lining out. So there's a bit of experience there as well. And
I think Jaco Creel is there as well. Obviously, you would know from I think he was with Gloucester in the Premiership.
Yep.
So look, they have some guys there, and they've picked up some other from other teams last year, the Bulls and the Cheetahs and stuff like that. So look, they are a difficult team to at home. I was lucky enough to be in Johannesburg in 2018, just visiting friends. So I've been to the stadium. It'll be fantastic for those players to play in such an iconic arena. The problem
it'll be handy having Jenkins there, would it? Because there's got the whole atmosphere angle as well to it, the altitude and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's important. So it is iconic. The stadium, unfortunately, I think the Lions do probably need to find a new home. It's in a part of town that has its own difficulties, and that's why the crowds are low compared to the other three teams down there. So the Lions have lots of issues to sort over the next few years on, and the SARU really need to back them to the hilt if they're serious about, you know, because we could be sitting here in 2 years' time saying, remember when we did play the Lions, and that would be more than sad for that to happen. If a team was let go by the wayside. Because look, it's not that long ago. I think it's 2017, 2018. I think they got to 3 Super Rugby finals in a row. And obviously that team was
Faf de Klerk team, yeah.
The Faf de Klerk team, you know, and lost a couple to the Crusaders, I think. So like they have quality. There is pathways in that area of bringing quality teams through. The problem back then was they couldn't hold on to it. The SRU need to give them the information or give them the financials to be able to back them, so they can hold on to the next generation.
Absolutely. If there's Lions fans listening, I'm sure we're preaching to the choir there. So, okay, we'll move on now to the officials, and the referee is Mike Adamson, and he's got a Scottish TMO there as well, and South African assistants. The weather for Johannesburg for Saturday is meant to be partly sunny, 23 degrees, no chance of rain, not much wind. So it's going to be a balmy time in Johannesburg, I'd say. And that brings us on to our predictions, and we're going to look at the other provinces first, Tom, if that's okay. Have a quick look at Ulster v Dragons.
Yeah, you know, in short, Ulster have named a very strong team. Obviously, their focus is to try and overhaul the Stormers in second place and see, hopefully they slip up. you can't see anything but a bonus point win, unfortunately, against the Dragons of Belfast. Yeah, that'll be one, even though the Dragons do push teams a lot of times for 40, 60 minutes. It's hard to see anything past the bonus point win for the Ulstermen.
Yeah. And Stormers v Munster.
Well, Munster are fighting for their life. They need to get something out of at least one of the two games down there to stay in the top 8 and higher potentially, because top 7, because the Welsh Shield winners will qualify for Europe, and there is a danger if even the Treviso, Benetton Treviso, or the Scarlets win the Challenge Cup, that it could be the top 5 or the top 6 that only qualified for the Champions Cup next year. So Munster really need a win, especially to stay ahead of Connacht, who we'll talk about next. But the problem there is the Stormers are next on unbeatable down in Cape Town, and I can't see anything but a Stormers win. They'll bounce back after the disappointment of a very poor performance against Exeter, even though Munster have sent a fairly strong team. I suppose big surprise talking point is Joey Carberry has been left out of the 23. In some ways, it's no surprise he's not been playing well, but even Ben Healy, who was on his way to Edinburgh, is then ahead of him. So the future doesn't look great for Joey. But yeah, I think Stormers win. Munster might just sneak a losing bonus point, which might be all important come the last day.
Yeah, definitely every point is crucial over the next couple of weeks. Okay, that moves us on to Connacht, who hosts Cardiff.
Yeah, it's always an interesting game. Sometimes it's very hard to call this game. Connacht is just impossible to call. But again, they're in a position where they need to try and usurp Munster and get a win and a bonus point win against Cardiff. I actually fancied them to do it. It's pretty wet and windy down in Galway. Talking to my Western spies, I don't know what Cardiff will have an eye on the last day. In that, I think they play the Ospreys on the last day, which basically should decide the winner of the Welsh Shield and qualification for Europe. So I'm going for a Connacht win. Normally when Connacht win, they score tries. So yeah, with Bundy and Mack back and Carty's back, I'm going for a bonus point win for Connacht in West Galway.
Okay, and then finally our match in Joburg.
Oh, yeah, it's a difficult one. I have a sneaking suspicious we're going to win. I think it'll be a backs to the wall effort. I think the Lions have shown in the games that I've seen that they get 60% or so of possession and territory, but they don't really turn it into scores. So I'm going to rely on Leinster's good defensive systems that they have, no matter who plays, and that ability to snatch when we get possession, that we can turn it into 5 and 7 pointers. The Lions are vulnerable at the breakdown. I think they ship double figure turnovers at the game, so that's an area we could target. We're going to be under pressure under the scrum. We know they have some monsters in that front row, but I'm going for a Leinster win down in Johannesburg. Something just tells me that the circle of life will be complete, that we may come a cropper against the Bulls next week, considering the Bulls were the last teams to beat us in the league. It might be the full circle, that the Bulls might end their losing or winning run, I should say, and not the Lions. So I'm going for a Leinster win.
Fair play. Okay, well, that's great. Just to reference one other match, just one in which best of luck to Nico Friday and the Irish women's squad ahead of their Six Nations trip to Italy this weekend. There were, of course, yet more disturbing articles out there at the women's game during the week. We'll be talking about that a bit more in our wrap pod this Sunday. And right, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks to Tom for joining me for another preview show.
Cheers, Jeff. Much thanks for the invite.
No problem at all. And just before we sign off, just a quick shout out for Kigo, who's normally with us for these previews. He's been known to dabble in a spot of stand-up in his day. And coming up on Tuesday, April the 25th from 8 p.m. at On Show on Camden Street, he's part of a bill which includes Emily Ashmore and Fiona Frawley. Be sure to check it out, and you'll get a discount at the door if you use the code Harpin. Okay, right. And in the meantime, be sure to join the conversation on Mastodon throughout the match. Then maybe head over to our Facebook page at full time and leave your thoughts there. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend of rugby wherever you are, and stay safe, everyone. Slán.